Salutations, champions! As promised, we have our shading techniques tutorial. As you can see, I'm going to start everybody off something as basic as possible. Much as how John Buscema via How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way taught me, we're going to use the three basic shapes: the sphere, the cube, and the cylinder. Through shading, these shapes are given depth and dimension. Now, although there are more realistic methods of shading, for the purpose of this video, we're going to stick with the line art basics. In other words, comic book art techniques. Realistic shading will be covered in another tutorial. Now, that being said, let's get to it. Before we focus on detailing the detailing aspect of shading, I would like to draw attention to how you shade an object. For the purpose of this video, I'm using a regular HB pencil. There's the easy way, which is basically, like this, back and forth, like so. But you'll find that it leaves the line somewhat visible, and the same when you're inking with a Micron graphic pen. This makes it difficult when you're taking the next step with smudge work, as you can see here. You will not get an even coverage. Another way is a circular motion, like so. Tiny little round movements of your wrist, and you get an even spread, a thick black that you can easily smudge with your finger, like so. Again, just by making small random movements that you build up with no spaces, it's an even coverage. You can apply this also to coloring with Prismacolor pencils. The positioning of the hand is also important. Some artists holding the pencil as you would a writing pen. Others hold the pencil Some artists hold the pencil like this as you would a writing a pen. Others hold the pencil like this when they shade. Whichever position you accommodates your needs is entirely up to you. It won't be a bad idea to keep a sharpener handy though, if you need a sharp edge or a thin line on the page. Now that we've got any rudimentaries covered, let's hit it. The light source is always important as how to identify, as the object's shadow will follow in accordance with its location. So put the light source up here. Now let's focus on the sphere, which I've. All right. Let's focus on the sphere, which I have outlined the basic elements of a shadow. The highlight. This is the brightest spot in the object. You have the reflected highlight, the core shadow, and the cast shadow. Now, I have left out the. I've left out the mid-tone, and that was deliberate because so I can incorporate line art principles. I've already done that on the cube with basic hatching on one side, and I'll demonstrate the approach now with the sphere. All right, so let's see. Doesn't hurt to go over your surface if you need to, like so. And I'll explain this version of hatching in a few minutes. Okay, hatching is a French technique that is used to create shading effects via perpendicular lines. But one thing I should note is that the cube's shading is only partially finished. Now this is where I come in. At this stage, the cube has what is referred to as linear hatching. Only one pattern of parallel lines. which serves the purpose of either increased textural, here we'll go one step further with cross-hatching, which serves the purpose of either increased textural surfaces or dark areas of an object. You simply apply the lines as you had before, but going in the opposite direction, from the opposite side of the page and the opposite angle. Where you have to use your sharpener. Excuse me a minute. Here we go. As you can see, we have a different texture now, and that is one shade darker, and but not as dark as, but of course, not as dark as this side of the cube. Now let's move on to the cylinder. Again, I only applied. Let me just adjust the camera. I've only applied the deep shadows, so we can demonstrate another variant of hatching, contoured hatching, and you've already seen that in the sphere over here. In the sphere, we are dealing with a curved surface, so like the sphere, we use curved lines. All right, like so. And it's also best to try to keep in mind the curve of the top of the cylinder. So maybe you can best illustrate the curved surface by keeping the curve in mind. You're doing so. We heard also to start down here so that you have an idea of what you're doing. Maybe in the middle. It just depends on what you feel is best, where you feel most comfortable. Also, at this point, the further away you get from your light source, like so, the deeper the line thickness, like this. Like so. And this is also where you can incorporate cross-hatching, only a different angle in some cases. In this case, since obviously you have a large shadow here, you can extend it slightly. Again, it depends on what suits your needs as an artist. And this is also where your eraser can come into play. If you have to. It's not needed right now, but I'm just giving you a heads up on a possible alternative method. Also, I will demonstrate in future videos, these shading techniques can be applied to any vehicle or figure or standing structure you could think of, be it in pencil or in ink. I was going to leave it here, but to demonstrate, I am going to give you a preview of what I'm working on right now, which is a Big Barda sketch. And I want to draw your attention to the monolith of Darkseid over here. As you can see, there are elements of basic hatching, contour hatching, and there will be some, if there's no cross hatching here, you get the basic principle of how the curve of a line can, let me just the camera. The curvature of a line can determine the textural surface, because these lines are basically shadow in effect, because you see how the muscle just grooves inward down here into a curve, you know, and the same goes for these areas here. And again, the light source is obviously the fire, so I had to illustrate how it would interact with the environment, specifically this statue, even though it's probably about maybe 100 yards away. Given that it's still large enough to take a light source and be noticeable, which is probably what Darkseid wanted, you can go to town with whatever you want, however you want it, how much of the statue you want to show. And also bear in mind that because it's a statue, you have to convey that as an artist. So that's why I put these little cracks in along the surface to give you that granite feel of the surface, of textural surface. Heck, you can only imagine how many probably died constructing this damn thing, or maybe someone died in spite of succeeding in constructing the damn thing. But if I wanted to, I'm not going to. I could create some cross hatching on this side of Darkseid's face, which would make it that much more, the shade that much more darker and less noticeable. But I'm not going to do that because I want to convey a visual effect, sort of like a 90s inking effect that Scott Williams did for Jim Lee when he did X-Men. He still does for when he does his DC stuff. But anyway, this is what I wanted to convey. What I wanted to demonstrate, how these principles that I've shown you on the sphere, cube, and the cylinder can be incorporated into a figure with all of its musculature and different shadows and bumps, you know, because the human body is not square, or it's not right. It's a mix of all three, and okay, and I will demonstrate, and I will show you how to incorporate all of these techniques in the future segments. For now, I think I'll leave it at this. Feel free to practice with these techniques using these basic shapes because they have a role. Again, they all have a role in figure construction, which will be the next tutorial. Please don't forget to subscribe below to the Art of JML channel, so you'll be able to notify future tutorials and promotions, and post whatever questions or comments in the comment section below. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to know what you want to see, or any questions you have about the craft itself. Till then, have a good week, champions. TGIF.